Blitz coming. Picked up. Mahomes wide open. It's Juju Smith-Schuster. One man to beat. Trying to get to the end zone. He will for the touchdown.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? This is KCSN Update, your daily Chiefs podcast and video from us here at KC Sports Network. I'm BJ Kissel, founder of KCSN and former Chiefs insider and sideline reporter. And it's Wednesday, which means we'll be joined by YouTube NFL content legend Brett Kollman, who will share his new gig working with the NFL, doing some content for them specifically. And then plus we'll talk about Chris Jones as a defensive player of the year candidate, at least a guy who deserves to be in that conversation. We'll get Brett's thoughts on that and his thoughts on the hows and whys of the Chiefs offense and what was supposed to be a down year, leading the league in scoring, number 2 in yards. Excited to get Brett's thoughts on those couple of things. But before we bring on Brett, here's a quick word from DraftKings. You can make every play feel as exciting as a Patrick Mahomes deep pass with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can bet any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. And check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. To make things even sweeter, you can throw down on those stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right now, let's welcome on Brett Kollman to the show. You can find him on Twitter at Brett Kollman or on YouTube, also at Brett Kollman. I promise you'll learn something checking out his YouTube channel, and hopefully we learn a lot today talking Chris Jones and the Chiefs offense. Brett, my man, how goes it today?
I feel like gloating, but I'm going to restrain myself because I said all off season that the Chiefs were going to be fine. You know, they didn't live and die by shot plays to Tyreek Hill. It happened like literally 9 times the entire season. I said their system is sustainable because they have Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. One receiver is not going to make or break them. What do you know? Magically, they're the best offense in the league. Who knew?
You know, one of the things that you did talk about earlier in the year that I hadn't really considered, which was a great point, and I think maybe Mahomes had to work a little harder, not getting some of those easy yards where some of that off coverage stuff where they would just throw it out to Tyreek. He'd pick up 8 yards very quickly, very easily, that they don't have necessarily that kind of playbook. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't have those plays in their arsenal yet, but hadn't really slowed him down, obviously, as what we've been talking about. But Brett, the receipts are starting to come back because we're about 7 games in. Chiefs fans are starting to dig up a lot of these tweets from the offseason. The Keenan Allen one was my favorite. When Tyreek got traded, he put out this tweet, or this move is going to expose some people. I'm glad he's out of our division.
Oh, even Tyreek's own statements are probably getting dug up, you know?
We just happened to find that one first, but there's going to be an entire, it's the bye week. So everybody's got time to go find all these old tweets. I've said from the beginning that I would be an insufferable Chiefs fan. I normally am pretty even keel, win, lose, whatever. It's a long season. Nate Taylor yesterday said, it's chapters in a book every game. But with everything the AFC West and what the teams did in the AFC West to try to make moves to take down the champs, it's looking pretty good so far. And we saw, an offseason unlike any other with, what Denver did with Russell Wilson and how that's working out for them. But also Randy Gregory. Obviously, the Raiders bringing in Devontae Adams, signing Chandler Jones, and the Chargers, Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson. Some of the moves not really working out in their favor. Pretty much everyone I think I just mentioned, those guys haven't made the impact. Khalil Mack's been good. But J.C. Jackson, obviously injured now and wasn't playing great before. But, Brett, let's get into this before I get into my insufferable Chiefs fire hosing takes.
You've earned it.
You did everything you could, and you still couldn't beat us. Let's talk a little Chris Jones, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I know Pro Football Focus put out, a stat saying he's the highest graded defensive player in the league right now. Is it too early for Chiefs fans, or, we're biased, but is it too early to have that conversation and saying Chris Jones should be a legitimate contender for Defensive Player of the Year?
No, because not only is he playing like, his normal all pro caliber self, there's really only 3 interior players in the league right now that I think have a shot. And it's Aaron Donald, because always Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, and Quinnen Williams. Like, those 3 are the gold standard right now. And Jones in particular, I think his case is very strong. He's top 6 in pressures. He's got 32 pressures in 7 games, which for an interior guy is really good. Obviously the sacks are also there, so he's finishing it. He's tied for fifth in batted passes at the line, which is something a lot of other DTs don't necessarily have. He's got 3 of those already, so he's on pace for 6 or 7, which a batted pass to me is still a killed play. So if you're killing as many plays as possible, that's usually a good thing. But to me, what also makes his case strong is you look at what's around him on the defensive line. He's the guy, that people are sliding to. Like, you don't really leave him one-on-one unless the defense absolutely forces you to do it by like walking up a linebacker or threatening a blitz or something like that. But in just a straight up like 4-man rush look, they're sliding to Chris Jones. He's getting a lot of double teams. So it is a little bit harder for him than on, say, a lot of other interior guys in the league, and he's still producing like crazy. I think that if he had the benefit of some of the other guys that are on the Jets defensive line around him, for instance, the numbers would be off the freaking charts right now. So he definitely has a case. In terms of who I would vote for, I still lean towards Micah Parsons for now, but Chris Jones is absolutely in the conversation, and, given a month or two, and who knows, that could flip.
When it comes to voting and the way that it actually happens to win awards like that, what is it that you think Chris Jones would need to do over the final 10 games of the regular season? Because for me, it's a combination, obviously stats. Like, you need sacks to win an award like that. A lot of pressures is great, but a lot of people are going to vote based on, who are making the game-changing plays, and that's just traditionally been sacks. And then the combination of primetime games standing out and making game-changing plays. The Chiefs have a couple more primetime games on their schedule. They've got one against Denver. We'll see who's playing quarterback for Denver in that game. But what do you think that he could do to strengthen his case? Because taking nothing away from Micah Parsons being just an absolute beast down there in Dallas, but what can Chris do to strengthen his case for the voters in the way that it actually happens to win an award like that?
Usually, and I wish it wasn't this way, but you know how it is. A lot of the voters don't watch everything. In fact, a lot of the voters don't watch even half of the games or half the players. They pick their one game on, the 10 a.m. slot, their one game in the 4 p.m. slot, and then the primetime game. Maybe they'll watch Red Zone, but they're not sitting there watching everything, grading everything. And so it really does come down to, what are you doing in primetime combined with stats? Like, that has always been the determining factor in who wins. So you got a Sunday night game coming up against Tennessee at home in a couple weeks. You got to buy to prepare for it. If he gets 2.5 sacks in that game and 2.5 more sacks against Denver in prime time in about a month from now, that leaves an impression on the voters' mind. And he's obviously still going to be great in the other games too. But the primetime games where the voters, who we know for a fact don't watch every game, if you're making an impression in those slots, you're going to have a good shot to win. So those are the 2 games that he needs to make a big push in, which, he's Chris Jones. He probably will. He'll be fine.
All right, let's move to the other side of the ball and talk about the Chiefs offense. It's been the story. We talked about it before. You mentioned from the day that we started doing these videos that you didn't expect there to be much of a drop-off of the Chiefs offense, and that's what we've seen. It's been a little bit different. Even the numbers kind of bear that out, looking at some of the passing charts, and maybe not taking the highest percentage of deep shots down the field, but they're throwing more intermediate across the middle. But for you, what's been give me the hows and whys? I know it's a loaded question, but you're the X's and O's genius here. And not just like the rest of us just saying, well, Patrick's really good at football. And that's the reason that the Chiefs offense is really good. But schematically, what have they changed? What have you seen as far as how they're utilizing this new, group of wide receivers to, the skill sets of what they do and how they're finding success?
It's funny because sometimes it does come down to Patrick is really good at football. Like if you're just looking at like the statistical profile of this team, right? And I
Yeah.
actually gathered a whole bunch of stats for this because it blew me away and I wanted to get the right numbers.
All
So you look at success rate for plays, right? Success rate's defined as you get 40% of the necessary yards to the sticks on first down. You get 60% of necessary yards to the sticks on second down. And success rate on third down is, are you converting or not? So this team has allowed the fourth most pressures in the league, the fourth highest pressure rate in the league allowed, the fourth highest pressure percentage under 2.5 seconds allowed, and yet they are bottom 6 in sacks taken because Pat gets out of everything. Like he's really, really slippery. And he could break the pocket and do his Pat Mahomes things and turn pressures into throwaways instead of pressures into sacks. That's a big key. Secondly, their success rate, despite all of that pressure given up, is still top 3 in virtually every down and distance. And especially on third down, 3rd and 7 plus, meaning 3rd and 7 out to 3rd and 20. Like we saw that filter screen that hit on 3rd and 20 this past game. On 3rd and 11, we saw a go ball to MVS against quarters where Pat knew he had a one-on-one outside and hit it because the corner was flat-footed and didn't believe they were going to try to make that throw. But Pat said, I'm Mahomes, I'm going to make that throw. And he did. Their success rate on 3rd and 7 plus in those exact types of situations is bonkers. It's 42% on 3rd and long or 3rd and very long. That is best in the league. Better than Buffalo, better than Cincinnati, better than the Eagles, better than everybody. That is absurd to allow that much pressure and still have a quarterback that can get out of that pressure and make those types of long throws to MVS and, find Kelsey sitting in a hole over the middle while he's running for his life. Obviously, the scheme stuff is great. We've seen contributions in the run game. Creed is playing out of his mind as a run blocker in particular to set up some easier third downs. But when things really get bad, Mahomes is just on a completely other level this year. Like, this is the best he's ever played. And he's one of the 5 on pace to be.
No, go ahead and say it. Don't stop yourself. I know you were about to say. I can see your face.
I don't want a lot of people to kill me for this, but I know it's recency bias. He's one of the 5 best quarterbacks ever. And this is the best he's ever played. It's absurd. He is just absurd.
From a pure talent standpoint, Super Bowls, however you want to judge the best to ever do it, you can put Terry Bradshaw in those conversations, which he never enters those, but you want to talk Super Bowls, put him in that conversation. Terry would love it. But from a pure skill standpoint, you can't argue with what this guy is doing on the field, and those stats just back it up. I love, and that one's a lot more in depth than like real football, but the one that I love the most is he is the 2nd highest winning percentage overall of all quarterbacks. When you spot everybody, when you put him down 10, he has the 2nd highest winning percentage of any quarterback since 2019. Yeah, like, and everybody else just like even. You spot him his opponent 10 points. He still has a 7 winning percentage of over. I think it's like 706.
Yeah.
The only one higher is Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be dropping as we get further into the season. And by the end of the season, it may end up still being the best quarterback in the NFL, even when you give the other team a 10-point lead.
Keep in mind, so I'm a Texans fan. I started being a Texans fan in 2002 when the team started up because my dad lived in Houston at the time. That playoff game, when Houston was up 24-3, you can go back in my Twitter timeline. I literally tweeted when they were up 24-3, Kansas City's going to win the game. Because I knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. Like 21 points, Pat Mahomes. Who cares? Who cares? That doesn't matter. And it didn't. Because that's what he is.
I will, and I'm glad you brought this up. It has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about, but it is the reason that I will defend, and not defend his play, but I will always support Daniel Sorensen forever because of that game. His tackle on the fake punt, which led to the first touchdown, and then getting the fumble on the kickoff for the next touchdown, like it changed that entire trajectory of the game. As soon as he tackled on the fake punt, I'm like, they're going to win this game. I think it was 24-3 at that point. Like, they're winning this game. That was a very bad decision. The crowd is back into it, and there's way too much time left. And I was a sideline reporter for the radio network, and I told Dan Israel, our executive producer, I'm like, we're not losing this game now. Like, these guys on the sideline are going crazy. Like, they're not at it. Like, this is
They still won by like 20 or something, right?
Yeah, it was like 51-31. Like it just blew them out. But while we're talking crazy Mahomes stats, or just context of what we've seen last year and what we've seen this year, I was looking up some stats on Pro Football Focus, and I was curious, now that we've got a little bit more of a sample size, I got 7 games into the season, but just looking at, the percentage of passes thrown to different areas of the field. Last year during the regular season, on passes of 20 yards or more down the field, that was 10.5% of his attempts were that far down the field. And this year it's 8.4%. So just a little bit lower. But when you look at the medium, those intermediate routes between 10 and 19 yards down the field, last year was 18.1%. And this year it's 22.1%. So more intermediate passes. But the cool thing that stands out to me is that in those medium passes last year, those intermediate routes were 18.1%. He was averaging 8.3 yards per attempt. So on passes that he's attempting 10 to 19 yards down the field, they're actually resulting in a yards per attempt of 8.3 on passes that were completed and all that. But this year, those same passes, 12.6 yards per attempt, almost 4 yards per attempt better on the intermediate routes. And I take that as it's Juju, it's MVS, these bigger body receivers across the middle. And obviously Travis Kelce doing what he does. But is that what those numbers mean to you? Because I'm just trying to contextualize what we thought we were going to see with where he was going to deliver the ball and what this offense was going to look like. And the numbers are starting to back this up.
Yeah, and it's also the types of routes run. We've noticed, or at least when I watch film, I don't have any numbers on this loaded up, but it felt like intermediate, like a significant number of the targets were, turning your back to the defense. I'm talking like comebacks, curls, over the ball routes on mesh, that type stuff, where it's stop at a spot, look at Pat, that kind of stuff. It seems like this year we're getting more overs, crossing routes, digs, stuff that's on the move. So you catch it and then turn upfield for a few extra yards. It just feels like we're getting more yak opportunities there.
It would make sense because they're seeing more man coverage. Whereas in the past, it was zone where they were just stopping in these windows, the ABC, stop, find Pat, find a lane, and he'll deliver the football. But yeah, and even further than that, just, you just take Pro Football Focus grades for however you want to take them. I don't want to set anybody off here when we start talking about this stuff. But when you look at last year in a couple of the areas, and again, we're talking like, very in-depth targeted areas of the field, but there were a couple of areas during the regular season that he had below average passer grades too. Is intermediate left and short left. Those were lower. When you look overall at all of the different areas of the field, they're all a little bit better this year. There's not an area that he's considered below average at different areas of the field and delivering to this year. So all those thoughts about he's going to spread the ball around more, he's going to read the field more, he doesn't just have to rely on one guy and do different things, or one guy to at least set the tone for the way the defense was going to be set up. He can sit back and read it, which those who have been around Patrick or have talked to him before or talked to the coaches, he's never gotten enough credit for his mental acuity and his ability to play the position and his ability, that didactic memory to know what a defense is doing and what coverages they're in and all those things. And the numbers are backing all this stuff up.
I remember his fourth ever start is 2018 against the Steelers. It's like week 3 or week 4, somewhere around there.
That was week 2, I believe.
That was the game where everybody was like, oh, like this might be real. He was throwing touchdowns to Kelce against 2 invert with like a bluffed man coverage look, where they were like tracking the motion and everything, being like, oh, we're in man coverage. And then they rolled out to 2 invert and he still hit Kelce up the seam for a touchdown in like his 3rd or 4th ever start. That was the play that made me do my first episode where I was like, wow, I was dead wrong. Mahomes is amazing. Because I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out of Texas Tech, but like it took me 4 starts in the league for me to go, that's really different. He's different.
I remember talking with a few of the coaches. There's a couple stories, and I've shared these before, and I feel like it's far enough removed I can share these things. I remember talking with a few of the coaches about and Patrick, his first couple years. So like the year that he was sitting behind Alex, and then obviously his first year starting. in that first, it was going into his first year as the starter during OTAs, where he didn't care. I talked to him after practice, and there'd be a couple interceptions, this, that, and you'd see him celebrate after a couple plays that were just like simple little outs or just simple things. That from a media standpoint, when you don't know what's going on in the field, you're just like, why is he so excited about that? And he was more into getting the protection set correctly than he was the result of the throw or the play or whatever it was. And they were throwing the kitchen sink at him. And there's a story, and I've talked about this before, but that last day of OTAs, or his mandatory minicamp, it was the last day of mandatory minicamp in June before they would break for like 6 weeks and go to training camp, that, it was kind of set up, the coaching staff and Bob Sutton, the defensive coordinator at the time. And, Chiefs fans can feel how they do about Bob, but Bob had a very intricate defense. He had a lot of looks. He threw a lot of things at people and is a thought leader in that space. You have DCs around the league would always call the Chiefs in the offseason to talk to Bob, to pick his brain on things. And that last day of OTAs, they made a plan, like, we're going to throw everything we possibly can to stump him a little bit. So he feels like, hey, over the next 6 weeks, like, I got to put some work and I got a lot of work to do. And Brett, he torched the defense and everything they tried. And the look I was told that Bob Sutton gave to Andy Reid walking off the field was just like, what do you want me to do? Like, he just tore us apart. And that was where, like, the buzz internally of, we're about to see something that no one has seen before. And Brett and all these guys kind of, amongst themselves were like, this is about to be really special. And then when it started to happen, when the guys were publicly saying, like, we've been seeing this for a long time, like, it wasn't just, promoting your guys and doing the media thing and saying nice things. They really were like, we've tried to stump this guy all off season, and he had just, it all clicked for him. The way they brought him along, the way they developed him, and then obviously his natural ability and mental acuity again to play the position. I'll never forget. I didn't see it, but the way that it was described to me, that Bob looking at Coach just like, what the hell? Like, what do you want me to do?
I think it was Travis who said that seam ball against Denver last week of 2017, when they saw that throw, was what convinced Travis that it's like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit of a different ride next year. Let's see what we got.
That same game, he had a throw to Demarcus Robinson because Mahomes' first start his rookie year it was at Denver, that last game of his rookie year, where he went in, played well. They were winning. They brought in Tyler Bray, did not go well. Denver took the lead. They put Patrick back in, and he had a drive at the end where he was running to his right. We see it all the time now, but he was running to his right, and he threw to Demarcus Robinson, just like kind of like on an over coming across the field as they were in a scramble drill. And I was sitting next to Veach in the press box, and he like started cheering. And I had to like pull him down. I'm like, you can't do that in here. And there are a lot of people around here right now, man.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, he's probably like, yeah, I got a job for another 10 years. Let's go.
Sam and Therese were like kind of off to the side, and I could hear them giggling and I hear Therese cackling. And Sam just kind of like a high pitched giggle, like, are you kidding me with this stuff?
Oh man.
And then obviously the next year, the left-handed throw. I mean, we've seen all those plays, but you talk about greatest quarterback ever. I would put up his highlights at 27 years old against any quarterback in NFL history already.
Yeah.
With what we've seen from him. It's crazy.
Because, rough list here as an outsider fan, because I know Chiefs fans are going to be biased. Tom, Peyton, Marino.
Yeah.
Once you get to Marino, it depends. It's okay, are we doing Montana because he's Joe Cool in the playoffs and Super Bowls? I would give him that deference. But like number 5, it's Favre, Rodgers. I don't know. The trajectory that Mahomes is on right now is as amazing as Rodgers is with all the MVPs and the statistics and everything like that. The trajectory that Mahomes is on right now is even better. So once we get to 5, like I'll give Montana top 4 because he's Joe Montana, but like, man, once you get to 5, it's tough.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. We suffered for a long time, Brett, as a fan base. I was talking with a Packers fan the other day, and she's talking about like, this is a glimpse of their future and what they're going to see. And as soon as Rodgers is gone, like, it's going to be bleak. And I'm like, no one's going to feel bad for you guys for a while with what you've had at quarterback, and just always feeling like you have a chance. And I'm like, and Chiefs fans, I mean, since 83 that they had taken a quarterback in the first round and even like made took a chance. And Brett, like there were so many bad stats out there. But there was a stat, I think it was Blackledge, where the Chiefs hadn't had a quarterback that they drafted that won them a game in like 30 years. Like it was the worst stat. And I might have butchered that a little bit, but it was something to that effect. I'll look it up, or I'm sure somebody in the comment section will tell me. But it was your 83 or a quarterback they took in like 85.
That's horrific.
That was like the last time, because it was like Brody Croyle, who they drafted. And they didn't take a lot of swings. It was a lot of like former 49ers. It was Gerback and Bono and bringing over Joe Montana and all these other guys, Trent Green. And they've had good quarterbacks, but they haven't been their guy. Yeah. And so with Mahomes, it was like, we finally got our guy, and you got a toolsy playmaker with one of the best coaches in NFL history that's just like a quarterback whisperer and knows how to develop these guys. You put that talent and that mind together. Beautiful thing.
And an amazingly team-friendly contract.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
Beautiful.
You will never see that type of deal again. Ever.
I think he's doing just fine. You watch any Chiefs game, every commercial break, there's at least one Patrick Mahomes commercial, whether it's State Farm or whether it's Hy-Vee, whether it's Oakley, and they're good. Like it's not like annoying. Maybe it's because we're Chiefs fans.
But Lamar ain't giving
genuinely
that deal.
good.
Lamar ain't giving that deal to Baltimore. Russ didn't give that deal to Denver. Like that is a one-of-one contract, which baby goat. Like Brady had very flexibly structured contracts, so to speak. Yeah, same kind of thing. He wants to win Super Bowls. I respect it.
And we talked about roster composition. We'll wrap up this show, get your final thoughts. But talk about roster composition, the way they're set up. The Chiefs are getting so much production out of their rookies right now in the rookie class. At edge rusher with Karlaftis, hasn't made the impact necessarily with sacks, but he's gotten a lot of pressures. He's not out of his element out there on the field as a liability or anything. And then obviously the young DBs that we've talked about with Brian Cook. McDuffie hadn't even played, but like a half. So we'll see him back after the bye week. Coach Reed said that he should be getting back and healthy. Josh Williams, Jalen Watson. You see these young guys stepping up, making plays. Leo Chanel's getting out there. Pacheco's getting out there. This is set up very well with the cap extending. They're going to be into some money.
And 2023 and 2023 and 2024 Chiefs first round picks. Brian Burns is a pretty good player too.
Oh, you're on the trade for Brian Burns train. Let's
talk
about this.
I am.
Okay.
Wouldn't you be?
I'm not against it, but it worries me. And I've said this probably on every show that we've had, because it always comes up. It worries me to give up multiple high draft picks and knowing you're going to have to give the dude a big contract, because you don't want to be in an Orlando Brown situation where you give up a high draft pick and then you don't extend him, that you extend a player before you know how he fits or what kind of impact he makes. So you would know better than me. I haven't watched a ton of Brian Burns, but the combination of draft picks plus money for a player that hasn't stepped foot in your building yet just makes me nervous.
I think Chiefs fans are scarred because of what eventually happened with Frank Clark's production and obviously Orlando Brown.
Talking to the wrong guy about Frank Clark.
I know. 99% of Chiefs fans are scarred about what eventually happened with the.
Not everybody can be right.
They've traded some first round picks recently that maybe they wish they had back, but
they could have drafted LJ Collier, which is who Seattle took with that pick, Brett.
Okay, hold on. Seattle.
I'm a little defensive,
picks.
All right. I'm a little defensive, right?
But Brian Burns is right now a better player than Frank was when they traded for him, and that's nothing against Frank Clark. Right. Brian Burns is like an amazing edge rusher, and he's a better edge rusher than Brown was a tackle when they acquired him. So he is just a straight up better football player with a higher ceiling.
You're a big Brian Burns fan, aren't you?
I love Brian Burns. Brian Burns.
What do you think it would ultimately take? Let's chase this down. What do you think it would ultimately take, or what do you think a fair deal for both teams would be as a completely objective observer?
2 1s, I would say. 2 1s or a 1, a 2, and a conditional 3 that could turn into another 2 based on production. That's what I would guess. But you're not, again, here you're going to be picking no worse than 30th or no higher than 30th. Like you're not going to get Brian Burns at 30. You know? So I would go the Rams route and be like, screw it. We got low picks anyway. Let's get a guy that we know when people take a pick in the top 15, they hope that they turn out to be Brian Burns. So you might as well skip that step and just go get Brian Burns.
Give up picks, and you got to give him a contract. You got $16 million next year as his 5th-year option, and you give him a bunch of money, which, in fairness, you can do because Karlaftis is on a rookie deal. And you can have other young players that surround him, draft another guy, toolsy guy in the middle rounds, and hopefully he develops.
And they're so good at moving around their cap. Like, they would figure out the money. I'm not worried about that part. The Chiefs are very good at that. You know, they don't hit on every pick, but when it comes to money stuff, they're amazing.
We should have done more research going into this. I'd be curious also, compare trading a couple picks for Brian Burns and giving him money. Are there any top edge rushers who are going to be coming available in free agency that they wouldn't have to give up picks? They wouldn't get Brian Burns obviously for this year, but is there a marquee guy that is going to, most edge rushers don't hit free agency.
Yeah.
Like that.
None
And
that are
the ones that
like,
we have seen
yeah.
have worked out. I mean, like Trey Flowers was a guy a couple years ago and
you know,
really made an impact.
It's nothing like of the caliber, like when Vaughn was on the market last year. It's nothing like that. Off the top of my head, I'm looking at it right now.
They're like Myles Garrett. Think they trade him?
I think
like Chase Young.
They gave him a deal, right?
Yes, I'm just messing around, just trying to buy some time
Here
to give you.
Here we go. Okay, so here is the here's the edge rusher market.
I know it's good for your point because you're giggling.
You're interested in Yannick Ngakoue, Jadeveon Clowney, Cleveland Ferrell, Bradley Chubb, Samson Ebukam. Well, actually, I would actually like Ebukam, but still, he's not Brian
Chubb's
Burns.
not bad. He's injured.
None of them are Brian Burns. You want to bring back Melvin Ingram? I'm sure Chiefs fans would love that. Arden Key, Marcus Davenport, Dante Fowler. Like, that's what we're looking at here. You know, it's none of them are Brian Burns.
How old? Davenport's pretty young, though.
Yeah, well, actually, no, he was an older draft pick. That's right. He's already 27. He's older than Brian Burns is.
Okay.
But
okay.
You know,
okay.
You want to bring back Tano Passignon?
I like Tano. Tano is the first dude you get off the bus. Dude was 6'8". I'll never forget. He was 6'7", 289 with like 4% body fat.
Yeah.
That dude was like, where you build a defensive end at the NFL level, and they tried to turn him into a 3-4 outside linebacker. I watched that guy at camp covering wheel routes, Brett.
Oh, he's a freak athlete. That's why they took him in the second round.
Yeah.
But anyway, Brian Burns or bust. That's my take.
All right.
Like, you're in your window. Go attack.
We've got 5 days. We've got 5 days to get it done. Kent Swanson had said before that he'd give up a 2 and a 4. And you don't think that would
Oh, you're not getting him for a 2 and a 4. No way.
They could hold on to him and have him play on a bad football team with no draft picks next year.
Wait, if they traded away CMC for like half a draft. Anyway.
We'll see how it all plays out. I would expect a move like a Robert Quinn. If I had to put money on it, Brian Burns, I just think it's too much for what's the 2 for?
Robert Quinn. That's what they want for him.
Yeah.
You're not giving up a 2 for Robert Quinn. I know Brett Veach. You ain't doing that.
And Brett Veach is not giving Ryan Poles a 2 for Robert Quinn.
No
way. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation.
No way.
But anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs do. Expect them to make some kind of move. We saw it even in the Super Bowl year. They made the move for Terrell Suggs. It was late in his career, but made some impact plays in some moments that it really mattered. And that's what you want to do with adding somebody at this point, unless, to your point, it's a Brian Burns and a guy that you can help build your defense around for the next several years. And again, roster composition, you've got some money coming available in the next couple of years, and you've got another starting edge rusher on a rookie deal. So not a bad idea, Brett. What are you working on right now before we let everybody go? What can you promote?
Well, I just did a quasi Chiefs episode on the history of the shovel pass and why Kansas City's like the only good team at running it. That ended up being a pretty fun one, and Chiefs fans seem to enjoy it because they like the explanation of why they're better than everybody. Go figure. Right now, I'm working on an episode of why Kyle Pitts' production has been incredibly low compared to expectations. You know, a lot of people saw him as like, maybe the next Travis Kelce, and he's got like 16 catches in 6 games, which is very un-Travis Kelce-like. So kind of diving into the Falcons scheme and, what are some of the things that have been going on down there in Atlanta to
not throwing the football.
Don't even get me started.
I was gonna do kind of the same of, why are the Chiefs good? Patrick is good. It's like, why is his production down? Because they average like 20 passes a game. Like,
Have you ever seen a team go down like by 21 points in the first quarter and throw 13 times? Like, I've never seen that. It's insane. That's the Falcons
crazy,
for you.
But do want to check that out. I haven't checked out the shovel pass video. I know we talked about it, but I want to go check that out. You can find all his work on his YouTube channel at Brett Kollman, and you can also find him on Twitter at Brett Kollman. Brett, always appreciate it, my guy. And we will chat next week, talking a little preview matchups for the Chiefs and Titans game coming up after the bye week. So looking forward to that. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening to the podcast audio. We appreciate your support of what we're doing here at KC Sports Network, and invite you to go ahead and leave us a 5-star review and a nice little comment if you like the content. If not, tweet us, because that's what Twitter is for. So appreciate everybody. We'll see you all next time.